Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Spotlight in Business for February the 3rd, 2023. I'm your host, Tammy Defoe, President, Founder, and Business Coach at GTApreneurs. And I'm so happy to have with me today, Hailey Reiss. She will be the guest speaker at our next virtual networking event. That's Wednesday, February the 8th at 12 o'clock. If you haven't got your ticket yet, we'll put the link to register in the chat below. So thanks so much for coming today, Hailey. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's my pleasure. And yeah, I'm looking forward to your presentation next week. But first of all, tell everybody more about yourself.
Well, I'm a registered social worker and a music therapist, so I kind of hold both titles. And so in music therapy, I work with seniors and I work with people with disabilities, helping them to communicate or reminisce. And, you know, music connects to everyone. So it's a great way to access things for people. So that's kind of on that music therapy side. And on the social work side, I work with people of all different ages and abilities and with different issues going on. And so I've been doing that for a few years and I'm really passionate about helping people. I think, everyone has gone through something in their life. So it's important to kind of be there to have someone to, lend an ear and support and help you problem solve things.
Absolutely. And so do you use music therapy with in your social worker sessions? Your social-
Sometimes.
Okay. Yeah, I can see how that would be helpful. Whether it be to maybe conjure up a memory from the past that people may have had of a maybe traumatic incident or something that made them feel good, right? That you want to get them back in that right path. So yeah, I think that's very interesting. And so what made you get into being a social worker?
I think just like everyone, I've had my own things in the past that have happened, and that led me into music therapy because music was something that really helped and saved me. And then from there, I wanted to learn more and be able to work with more ways because not everyone connects to music in that same way. And
Mhm.
so I wanted to kind of, expand what I could offer to people. And so I went back and I did my master's of social work and have just kept going. I do about 200 of hours of continuing ed every year to kind of keep on top and learn new things to offer as many different options because I'm very big on people don't fit into one, square hole. Everyone is different, and so you have to have different modalities to work from.
Absolutely. And so what are some of the common issues that you treat? And that's Cora, by the way. Just, the cat, they just walk across whenever they feel like it, right?
Hey, if I was at home, the dog would be barking and wanting to join in too, so it's fine. So I work with a variety of individuals. So my specialty and my key interest area is trauma. So I work a lot with individuals with complex trauma or single incidence trauma, as well as dissociation. But I also work with anxiety and depression, anger management, a lot with dysregulation for kids or ADHD. So I work with a very wide scope of things.
Nice. And so how do you typically connect with people? Like, how do they find you? Um,
Yeah, it depends. So I think a lot of people will look up on Psychology Today for therapists near them.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's referral based off of Facebook or someplace where people are asking, who do you know? And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I've heard my name pop up from different places like that. Those are probably the two key ways. I've also heard of some doctors referring as well. So it really kind of just depends. For me, it's all about networking and knowing those individuals and stuff who may refer because people want to know, is are they good? Did you have a good experience? What do you think? Or in case of a doctor, like people take those referrals pretty seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like no matter what profession it is, there's always some that are better than others, right? But also too, it could be a personality connection, things like that. So it is definitely important to have someone that people trust, right? So someone that they connect with. So that's why I'm really happy to give you the exposure at our event where you can meet all the people there, so people can see who you are, what you have to offer, because either themselves or someone they know may be in need of a therapist, and then they can see, oh, is this the type of person that I want to connect with? Because again, they're not all the same. And so, a lot of people, like, most of us will try to just deal with things on our own. Or some people just try to forget about it. But what's the point where people need to realize that, no, I do need to see a professional?
I think it's different for each person. I think if you're noticing that it's a struggle to cope you're not coping with your everyday, or things at work aren't going well, that's a good sign that, this is, I might need some help with this. Sometimes people just also want to nip it in the bud first, right? Get some strategies, get going. People always come to me when they're at their worst, when it'd be a lot easier if they would come at their, when they're not at their worst. Because then we could
Right.
actually help them before and help them prevent going into that, right? And
Yeah.
I think everyone could benefit from talking to someone, because there's
Yeah.
always something going on in our life,
Mhm.
right? So there's also just that benefit of beforehand kind of
Mhm.
going and talking and trying to keep things steady before they get worse. But for sure, if you're noticing that things are, you're reacting badly at work, you're yelling at your family more, you're not able to cope with things, then that's a good time to, reach out to someone for some help.
Mhm. Or maybe also too, there's some people who that they get into the relationship with the same type of person. That's
Yeah.
an unhealthy relationship, and maybe they need to break the cycle,
Yeah.
right?
If you're
I
noticing
could,
patterns.
yeah, something like that, right? Or just, and again, having difficulty. Some people too, like they're maybe just really introverted in that, right? And maybe they feel any job they go to, they're getting picked on and that, right? But they can't keep not having a job. They can't keep changing. So maybe there's something that they need to change within themselves.
Yeah. There's lots of different reasons someone might seek out or at different times of their life,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And it could be a car accident, right? And then you're scared of driving again. I work with a few car accident um, cases, and it could be lots of different things can cause different things. It could also just be, things from the past popping up,
Mhm.
right? That are actually triggering that anxiety today. Maybe, you were bullied as a kid, and, someone said something to you today's day, and that actually triggered that memory from the past and all of those emotions. So it's like you're reacting to the present, but you're actually reacting from the past.
Yeah. And that actually happened to me. Like in my late 20s, went back to university and something happened that was the trigger from it was something that did happen in grade school and that. And it was like I was actually back there, like I was actually at that younger age. It was really weird. But yeah, that's interesting that you bring that up. Yeah, and I mean, there's so many things. Some people were have, their parents trained them in a certain way. Some of them, the parents told them they weren't good at anything, right? Or, maybe don't speak unless you're spoken to. I mean, there's all kind of stuff that people can have, but it's really good. I just really want people to start to think about, to realize that, oh, maybe this can help me out, right? Like that's my whole life as well as helping people and that. And so just to kind of, let people realize that, what you're going through is not necessarily something that you just have to keep going through. Like
Yeah.
sometimes just accept that this is just normal. This is how I'm always going to be because this is how I grew up or whatever. But you
Mhm.
don't have to, right? People like yourself are out there, and an expert, and you've got the tools there to, to really help people to get through that.
Yeah. People don't have to hold on to, especially to things that their parents have done. And yes, we're not, no parent can be perfect. Even today's day, parents can't, you're
Yeah.
going to make mistakes. Your parents have made mistakes. You make mistake if you're a parent. That's
Mhm.
normal. But you don't have to live with what those mistakes were that someone else has done. You could always help yourself through that.
Yeah, or again, even current trauma, say it could be car accident, could be death of a loved one, it could be, your spouse cheats on you. I mean, there's all kind of things. And then all of a sudden you can't function at work, right? And that, and maybe you start eating too much and you become really overweight. And I mean, yeah. So yeah, there's just a lot of, yeah.
Or really just the pandemic itself. I think what people don't realize is every one of us now has experienced a traumatic event.
Yes.
It was traumatic for people, for
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
And so that was actually a trigger for a lot of people,
Mhm.
stuff, and getting back out and returning to everyday life and trying to get back to some type of normal, where
Mhm.
normal is still a little bit different.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and yeah, again, I totally feel it myself. I can totally agree with what you're saying there. Like I know it's just like, okay, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't go to the gym, you can't, you have to wear a mask everywhere, yeah, it was. So I mean, this is something just like the Great Depression or the wars, the world wars and that, right? That we'll be talking about. So we're not here anymore, and you're telling our kids and grandkids, oh, there was this time during the pandemic, or even with each other. Remember during the pandemic that, yeah. So it is. but you're right. I never would have thought about that. That's even in that sort of situation to reach out and help with the, talk with a professional like yourself. And yeah, and it doesn't have to be the point where the person's in a real crisis mode, right? It can be something that you can even, like, you're thinking about getting divorced or something like that, right? And maybe you want to do something preemptive, talk to someone to help you to even initiate the process, right? And stuff like that, especially if someone's in an abusive relationship, right? And to go through that process, I think having someone at their side would be really helpful.
Yeah, there's lots of different ways, and we have lots of resources, right? A lot of therapists don't just talk about counseling, will help you find the resources you need, connect you to other professionals if you need, right? But as you said, one of the key things is that relationship. And so making sure that it connects. So don't be, I get this a lot where, oh, therapy doesn't work because and they've tried it once. Well, it could be that connection. It's actually something like
Mhm.
pretty high statistics where,
Sorry about
that's okay. Like, that just has to be part of our call today.
that.
It's actually quite high where that relationship and the therapeutic relationship counts for at least 50% or more
Mhm.
of the gains made in therapy. So if, no matter what I choose to use, no matter what methods I choose, if we don't have a relationship, you're not going to make progress.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is why I really want everyone to come out next Wednesday. So whether you're an entrepreneur and you just want to come for networking, right? Or you're any person who, is interested in learning about if, seeing a social worker can help you, right? Maybe you've been through some trauma before, to meet Hailey and see how you connect with her. Because, I agree that it has to be that right connection. People have different personalities and maybe they all went to school and they all learn the same things, but when you're executing that, the planning and then all the, conversations and stuff like that, it is still going to be, dependent on the personality and the experiences also of the therapist as well, right? Like, I tend to think that, I could be wrong, but I just tend to think that if there's a therapist who's been through some trauma themselves, that they may be able to relate more to their client than if someone just went to school and they learned it from the books, right?
Yeah, in some cases, yeah, some cases it helps not to be in it because for some people, especially if in a traumatic event, if the therapist hasn't worked through it themselves,
That's true.
that could be brought into the session, which is not about the therapist, it's about the client.
Right.
But in a lot of cases, that shared experience can be very helpful.
Excellent. Perfect. Well, look forward to learning more about all the different tips you have for us next week. So please come out to our event next Wednesday. You're going to really enjoy that. And again, the link to register is below. And thank you so much for your time, Hailey. And you have a great weekend.
Awesome, you too.